Hey everyone, today's conversation is going to be about growth. It's going to be about change. It's going to be about innovation. So if you are a business owner and you're going, what do I have to prepare for? If you are in medical affairs and you're going, how do I start a new product line? All of today's discussions should hopefully be kind of interesting to you. Our guest today is someone we've actually had on previously, but he's a licensed attorney in both Germany and the US, North Carolina. He's admitted as a foreign law consultant in Georgia. He consults clients on US, German, and European law. His practice areas include international business transactions, incorporations in the US and Germany, foreign direct investment advisory, startup consultations, immigration, business visas, company-sponsored green cards, as well as dual citizenship applications. He's equipped in far-reaching experiences in international investment. Additionally, he regularly assists U.S. and German clients in international litigation, litigation defense, and product liability actions. So we've actually had him on before. Our guest for today, Reinhard von Hennigs. Hey, Reinhard, how are you?
Darshan, I'm doing perfect. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming on. I still have to do a few more disclaimers. So I do want to emphasize, again, this is Darshan Talks live stream. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. I'm an attorney, I'm a pharmacist, and I advise companies with FDA-regulated products. Reinhard himself is also an attorney. But we both want to clarify, this is not legal advice. I'm not giving you clinical advice either. This is just a conversation between two attorneys and a pharmacist. And they don't necessarily reflect our opinions or the opinions of our clients or our employers. But if you like what you hear, please leave a comment, please subscribe, please share, please ask questions. You can always reach out to me on Twitter at Darshan Talks. Go to my website at darshantalks.com. Reinhard actually turns out, and I didn't notice about him, has multiple places you can reach him. You can reach him on email at rvh@bhl.law. You can go to his personal website, reinhardvonhennigs.com. You can go to his podcast website, morning-musings.com. Or you can actually buy his book, and I will be flashing all this information throughout the conversation. And that's the book right there. So thank you again, Reinhard.
About it. Thank you.
Well, I hope to discuss it a little bit as we continue. So Reinhard, this is the first time I've had you on this year, I think, if I remember correctly.
This year,
does that sound right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's time to talk about new beginnings, new starts. And that brings you to the question of entrepreneurship, and you deal with entrepreneurs. So talk to me a little bit about this idea of if you have a new business, or if you are working within a business and you have a new idea that you're going to promote, that you're going to sort of push for. Where do you start from? Do you start when you advise clients? Is it all about the idea? Is the idea the most important part?
Well, the idea is certainly great, but no idea survives without execution. And I think there is this good old phrase that the road to hell is labeled with good ideas and good plans and all the best promises. It boils down to the execution of that. So I do believe that execution is relevant, and execution is nothing which is a single day, a single moment event. Execution is a commitment. And I do believe, and I execute this also in my own practice, in my own law firm, that we are implementing things and we are pushing something down for a 90-day period. Why? Human behaviorists came to the conclusion that it takes 90 days to create a habit. And once it's strange to you, people tend to let go of things. But once it's a habit, it's very normal. We have the habit of tying our shoes, unless you have Velcro shoes, or sandals every morning, and we don't really reflect on this anymore. It's a habit because we learned it as a lifelong practice. And I do believe in business, it is all about forming good, positive habits and giving it 90 days of a chance for the habit to grow on you. Of course, you need to believe that it's the right thing to do, but that's where I come into place in my own organization to say, let's make it for 90 days and let's make a change, not today, but for the next 90 days to follow.
So you talk about the 90 days, but when you're innovating, when you're coming up with an idea, you don't even know what ideas to start from. So let's start from the beginning. What if I came to you and I said, Reinhard, I'm a new entrepreneur. I am trying to start a new business. what do you recommend they start from? Is it the business plan? Is it a pitch deck? Is it a story? Is it something else? Like, where do you start from?
I think all of the answers are correct. I have seen more companies to be successful with struggling to get the first product started, getting the beta version out, getting a prototype out, getting a early production line. There are a couple of GoFundMe type platforms which are actually willing to fund your prototyping and are willing to pay a certain price for a certain product which is not ready yet. But if it is ready, you can do it. I do believe doing it goes over thinking over it. So just to have a pitch deck is certainly not good. When we see companies at a very early stage or innovators at a very, very early stage, it always boils down to show me the gadget, show me what it is. And if they don't even have a prototype, well, maybe not. But if they have a prototype, that's good. If they have a prototype and they sold the first 1,000 items over a website, or they sold the first 100,000 to a certain retailer, or they have a contract with one major supplier, which they figured it out, or they're in the B2B business where they have one company out who said, we like your product, ship us some over. That's a much better story of success than it is just to say, I have a vision, I have an idea. Because visionary, we all are. We need somebody who really puts it into life.
So what you're saying is all of these things I'm talking about are great, but in the end, it's really who can execute and bring you to a point of de-risking, which is the prototype, which is the sale, which is the first sale or the 100th sale, the 1,000th sale. And that's where the proof is in the pudding. I guess my question becomes, though, when should you know that it's not the idea to pursue versus being the idea to pursue?
I think there is a good story which I use frequently in my talks and my presentations, and you may know the answer to that. What's WD-40?
I assume you're talking about the spray.
Absolutely. Okay. And I think we need to put a disclaimer: no advertising, no revenue shared, whatever it is. So WD-40 is this little spray in this little blue and yellow can. Do you know what WD stands for and what 40 stands for?
It's version 40. I remember reading that. It's version 40 of something.
It's a water dissolvent version number 40, exactly what it is. But the 39 versions before failed. And this company kind of like pushed it forward. First failure, second failure. And the 40th mechanism, the 40th formula, the 40th chemical mixture was a success. So if you would have told WD-40 you only have 39 trials, we would have never had WD-40.
I would have had WD-39 though, which could have been pretty good. I'm waiting for WD-41 right now.
That's true. So I think the real question is what is the likelihood of success after too many failures? And many people believe that you need to have a few rounds of experiments. You need to figure out what the product is. You do prototyping, and all of a sudden you realize, well, this prototyping is good, but for the mass production, the product would be much too expensive because it's way too technical. So we need to scale down certain areas from a prototype over to a mass market product. But here's what I really believe. You can go on and on and on if you have enough cash and if you have a team which is still dedicated in the cause. If you are burning cash, you may be subject to the fate of so many great companies. They just run out of cash and they wind down. But if you have enough cash and if you have the talent to be motivated enough, if you have the people to be motivated enough, one of the great innovator coaches named Vern Harnish talks about people. He talks about cash. He talks about execution. He also talks about strategy. But if you don't have the people because they run away, they are bored from your ideas. If you don't have the cash because your investors run short, it doesn't matter that you have a great plan. So for me, it's kind of like almost this holistic approach of people, cash, strategy, and execution. All of those four together create a certain growth strategy.
I've never seen it drawn out the way you did. And I'm looking at that going, that's really interesting. The people, the cash, the strategy, the execution. And none of those individually is going to get you all the way there. Exactly. Each of them is interdependent on the other. So when do you recommend people go out there and make a pitch? Because I'll tell you, in my case, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm looking to bring new products onto the market. I'm going through one right now. There was one idea that I've been working on literally since about 2011. And I think I'm a relatively smart guy. I can figure this out. I advise companies on all the time. What I struggled with was, how do I know that my idea is good? And what I found out, for me at least, was I needed some level of validation. I needed someone to go, I like your idea. But is that something you've seen a lot of people struggle with, or is that just a personal thing?
I think to have somebody to brainstorm, somebody to give you honest feedback is really relevant. One of my great experiences in life was that I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization, known as EO. And the website for that is eonetwork.org. And over EO, which is a peer-to-peer group of entrepreneurs, we do a non-competitive review. We do non-competitive help because we are, as peers, listening into our peers. And we also develop strategies from how we can grow our companies, how we can grow personal out of that. So I do believe that one of the biggest secrets in the business world is that we all know the air is thin up there. The air is thin where you and I are, because if we are the head of the company, it's very hard for somebody to give us meaningful feedback. It's very hard for somebody to stop us when we do something stupid. Right. And it needs to happen. So what I took benefits out of being a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization known as EO, that I got those peers who are telling me stop or who are telling me go. But it's not about that they are telling me stop or that they are telling me go. It's about that they share their own experiences in moments where they have been in similar moments. Nobody is telling me anything. That's also the part of entrepreneurship. So this climate of people who care for other people and to give honest feedback is something where I believe we all need it. We all need it as humans. We all need it as entrepreneurs. We need it as partners, spouses, fathers, or kids, depending on where we are in our different relations. But this honest feedback of my experience did not work out, your experience may be different, is something which I find is valuable. And whether the Entrepreneurs Organization is right for you or not, different question. But the core concept behind to verbalize something, I always get my little goosebumps when somebody is telling me, well, I'm thinking about it. Typical answer of a intern in our firm. Well, I'm thinking about the solution. I'm doing research. Well, you're never down to the point until you start writing. You're never down to the point until you get on a drawing board and you start drawing. So you need this ideation of ideas, and then next to it, you need to bring it over to a positive, negative, critical, open audience to get it checked. And if those audience tells you not a good idea, don't see the point, and it happens to you 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, maybe it's not the brightest idea, but maybe as in WD-40, you just needed to do one more time, just like Steve Jobs, one more thing, and then you're ready.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was very good with the one more thing. That's how the iPhone got introduced, the iPad got introduced. But you raise an important question or important fact, which is you need to have those conversations, and you need to get feedback on your ideas. A lot of people do that using something like what you did, which is having entrepreneurs organization, helping them help you. But the other way people do that is partners, and the third way is investors. Do you find that it's better to go down the partners route because you can get continuous feedback? Is it better to go down the investors route because they have skin in the game? Which is the best way, and how do you help people make that decision?
I think a lot has to do with who are you. And some people are the absolute lone wolves. They need somebody who's more a sounding board. Some people are more chaotic in their execution stage. They need somebody to be more disciplined. So I think there is no one-size-fits-all approach, but I do believe we as humans are communicative by nature, and therefore we all benefit and we all get a better product out if we're able to share the product and have multiple different viewpoints. If you had the same thing to work all over the world, we would all drive on the same side of the road. Still, people believe it's better to drive on the left side or it's better to drive on the right side. So in other words, if something doesn't work here, it may work elsewhere. I had once a client who asked me if I can help this client, or a client prospect who asked me if I can help this client to enter the European market by selling ice, as in ice cubes. And this person did a market research and figured out that in Europe, it's very uncommon to go to a gas station and to have those ice packs where you can buy it for $1, $2, a little ice pack. And this person figured there's a great market. I said, okay, I believe there is a market. Whether it's great, maybe depending on, do the people like to buy ice? And in the imagination of the person, it was unthinkable that somebody would not buy ice, only to share that from a cultural point of view, in certain countries, ice is considered to be dirty because we don't know the hygienic basis of how this ice was made or stored. It could be the harvesting place for E. coli and other bacteria because we don't know the water quality, and the bad stuff is frozen for some time and it kind of like melts deliciously in your drink. So all of those things are, for me, relevant factors. So what works in one country may not work in the other country, but by the same token, it boils a lot down to knowing your market at a very, very intimate basis. And research and homework is certainly step number one.
So step number one is market research. So do you think that as you start writing things down, you should start with the marketing plan first, identify what the market is, come up with the marketing plan, then come up with a business plan and go, based on the marketing plan, here's what I think I can penetrate because now I've done some market testing. I've done some evaluation. So what I'm hearing, again, I saw you nod, so I'm going to try to sort of bring things together. What I'm hearing is first write down your idea, then do the market research, then start writing the business plan. Is that a summary of what you just said, or did I misinterpret that?
Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then becomes who's your team. So you said 4 things: people, cash, execution, strategy. So let's focus on those. So when you talk about people, this is where we go. Is it going to be a team? Is it going to be, if you're this early on, you don't have a VC. So it's going to be either a partner or you're joining an organization. When you're having that conversation of partner or joining an organization, how do you decide how much you're going to give to that partner if that's the direction you're going to take? Everyone always starts with 50-50. When do you think 50-50 is a bad idea?
I'm ready to say it's always a bad idea. Because if you do 50-50 now and you are then out of a sudden going to some venture rounds later on and everyone needs to take a haircut, you may lose significant talent. But by the same token, if you boil down in an organization where you don't have the cash, that's the second component, to pay somebody a decent or a fair salary over the time, then it also means that you may need to do some kind of treatment over alternative compensation, which could be an equity in the company, or it could be that you promise that the members would be benefiting from a certain cash call at a certain time when you raise some money. So 50-50 for me to start with is certainly bad, but by the same token, it may be the perfect idea if you share 50-50 responsibilities. It could also be a good idea to say, we as owners and founders always want to maintain 30%. So we are only sharing the 30%, but we understand that we need to add a couple of more members. So you break it down. You take 5, I take 5, and the other 20% we give to fellow joiners of our organization, but we're willing to give up 70% to future investors. So in a way, make some plans and do some strategy now may help you to be in the world of frustration later when you tell somebody, well, you need to give me some of your shares or of your interests or of your units because our venture partner wants 20, 30, 40%, and we need to both give up. The haircut is there for everybody.
So that's really interesting. So when I talk to early stage entrepreneurs, they're always starting off with that 50-50. And it's the natural tendency. Let's just be fair. Everyone gets a piece. And what you're saying is that's almost never the greatest idea because, I mean, it'd have to be a very specific set of circumstances when that works. In most situations, you want to cut yourself a piece, say this is the only piece we're dividing right now. And then if we get additional people, we'll essentially create another class of shares or create a pie of that or employees. So how do
class of shares is brilliant. I mean, we can make preferred, we can make common stocks, we can make class A, class B, and define who has the voting rights, who has control rights. I've seen company structures who are giving the voting rights to designated minority owners, so that they're able to pitch in a certain market, and the so-called majority members get a different class, and they have less voting rights. But in doing that, you would have a benefit in the venture market, or you have a benefit if you are trying to get into some kind of public offers, public tenders, where you may be better off if you are in the small business world a minority-owned entity.
Do you think if I may have big dreams, but when is it too early to start thinking about things like ownership levels and voting rights and employee stock plans, and like when is it too early, and when is the right time to start having that thought process or that consideration?
I think it's too early when it overpowers your thinking. If you wake up in the morning and you think about, well, do I really ready to get 2.5% from this person, or how do we do that? That's way too early. The real focus should be get your product ready, get your market ready, do the sales calls, make sure that somebody likes your products, talk to journalists, talk to opinion leaders, talk to influencers, whatever it is, get your product out. And later it makes sense to decide about sharing a discussion. But to waste a month of your life by trying to make a stock option plan for a company which never makes it because nobody knows of your product, for me, is an outright waste of time. So go selling first.
Such great advice. So we've talked a little bit about strategy, and we've talked about how do you begin. And we said that would be I'm trying to remember what the step one was: having the idea written down, then having a marketing strategy done, and then finally having the business plan, and then going from there. In terms of people, whether you're going to be individual or you're going to have multiples, and how you split that up. Then comes the cash. Early stage. Everyone talks about the F's, if you will: friends, family, fools. That's where you get the money. Have you seen anything other than friends, family, fools in that early stage?
I've seen websites who raise money to work out quite nicely. And there are a couple of websites out where you can buy into early prototyping, where you can buy in a product and you're committing, you're putting your credit card in, and you get a guaranteed early adopter product delivered to your doorstep. I've seen that work, especially when you need some money. I've seen also the SBA in some areas to be a very good partner. The problem with the SBA is you need to have some money, because typically banks are the intermediary. You don't deal with the SBA, the Small Business Administration, individually. You deal with banks who are then getting the loan done through the SBA. But banks want some security. So if you have nothing, it doesn't work. But if you have some collateral, this could work. And you would then have the benefit of having money free and clear from any investors. Downside is that you are liable for it, absolutely. But if you have a good idea and you spend the money carefully, that's certainly a risk to take. I've also seen companies selling their product to their key customer. Let's say you have a single product, which is a really unique gadget, and you realize the company X, Y, and Z is in need of that product. I've seen kind of like the company willing to support you in your growth of the company for prototyping and getting you in exchange for a preferred deal, or that you don't sell to the competition, or in exchange for a preferred price for the next 2-3 years. So what I've seen is the sky is the limit, but you need to ask for it. And if you don't talk to your potential customer to say, do you really like the product? That's my prototype. But if you want it, I need some money from you. It may be a yes, it may be a no. But if you don't ask, you don't get the answer.
Which is so what you provided is an unusual answer, because people always think about, how do I get cash? And what you provided was these alternative ways of thinking about it. I actually thought of something you didn't mention, but I know you had in the back of your head. We spoke a little bit about debt. The SBA loan, for example, you mentioned that. We spoke about equity, so ownership structure. You said selling the product to a potential client, which I think is 100% right, and they support you. going onto the websites, making sure that you get information from their websites, and they support the people on the website support you in exchange for preferred access to the product. One of the things I know because you and I have had this discussion before, is selling international rights or selling your rights to a component of your idea. So you might say this is a global idea. I will sell the rights to manufacture in Ireland, and you guys can do that. I'm not interested. I'm not going there. So in exchange for you giving me some money right now, you get that right up there. My question for you is, when you're doing these ideas and they're business ideas, so how do you help these companies protect the idea? I mean, we do CDAs, for example, and you do IP protections, but sometimes there's something that doesn't quite qualify for any kind of IP protection. What do you advise people then? Is it just first to market is all you can control and that's all you do? Is it first to get market share? What do you recommend for someone who's going, I'm worried that once I get out there, everyone, like, there are big players who want to take over what I do?
I see the concern. I hear of the concern, somebody may copy me and may just, do the same thing. And I think in your pharmaceutical world, the whole generic fear is out there. If it takes for you too long to get a product to market, then out of a sudden your revenue portion is too short, and out of a sudden the generics are killing it. Why? Because the know-how and the formula is out on the market. It's part of the patent filing. But I see a lot of companies, they cannot do patent filings because a product is not patentable. Or I see that products are in theory patentable, but it really doesn't help you to make a product to be successful because it doesn't know the business processes. It doesn't share a certain formula behind, be it from a temperature or be it from a component, be it from a pressure, whatever it is. You may have a secret while you only patent certain parts of it. And we have this discussion with our clients very often. What kind of components do you want to patent? We don't do patent law. We have outside firms who help us here, but we very often do this process to say, is this patentable? Should this be patented? Or should this be better something which can be completely in the secret? Because once a patent expired, everybody can copy it. And take Coca-Cola as an example. Based upon information and belief, I think that's how we lawyers call that, the Coca-Cola formula is not out. We don't know what it is. And so they're able to keep the formula secret for over a century now by not having it patented. If they would have patented the product, the patent would have expired and everybody would know exactly what it is. So that's certainly something where we as advisors come in to say, do I patent, do I not patent it? I believe very strong in getting things done through documentation as well as through agreements between the parties, what can be used. And I think it's totally fine to have certain products, if you license it out to stick with your example, Ireland. If you license a product out to Ireland, maybe to say, well, we license you the remainder, but this one gadget is ours. You can reverse engineer it as much as you want to. You can cut it in pieces. You can scan it, whatever it is, but you still will not figure out because we have so much industry secret in this one gadget. So we give you the gadget and we give you the license. Is a trick, but I'm totally with you. You can divide the world in territories of us and them, or you can divide a world with different licenses. I've seen growth strategies also done with franchising, where you have a product there, but the market is done through franchise, and you can then use a franchise model to grow very fast and only giving up limited rights. Because if you don't speak enough Japanese, if you want to enter the Japanese market, and you have somebody who's willing to take a master franchise for all Japan and is willing to pay you, hooray, hooray. Why not?
It's so interesting. But what I'm finding difficult is we talk about manufacturing things, and that becomes, yes, you can disclose part of it, but not disclose part of it. That becomes a lot harder when you're talking about something like a website. So how do you protect an idea behind a website? Or do you just have to wait till you just capture the market? Like Google has patents, but the reason Google wins is it's just a better product.
There are also algorithms behind which we don't know. Even though if we are trying to copy it, they're all somewhere coded, encoded, you and I, even if we were a computer whiz, we could not see the Google code just by looking at it, because it's something somewhere hidden. And I think that's the more modern world, is that things are hidden in plain sight. And you need much more, be it AI or much more, taking a deep dive into really reverse engineer it. But by the same token, I understand this whole idea of R&D, rip off and duplicate component.
I've never heard R&D be called rip off and duplicate. I like that.
But by the same token, I don't think the biggest threat are the duplicators. I think the biggest threats are companies who either don't have the strategy or the execution to it, or who run dry of cash, who run dry of people, who run away. And once you are in a certain growth stage, once you reach a certain critical number, and in the world of new companies, many companies dwindle with a couple of $100,000 in revenue, and they never make it. Only 4% of the companies created go over the $1 million range. And so if you have this idea of that, once you are in this $1 million range, then you plateau out before you reach the next level. And my ongoing take is, what works good in one area may not necessarily good in the other area. So every stage, the 0 to 1 million is a different stage than the 1 million to 2 million, the 2 million to 5 million. Every stage has their challenges. And that's where, back to the entrepreneurs network, which I talked earlier about, in the EO world, it's great to have peers who have been at the different stages and who can share their experiences. Because again, we all like to hear success stories from our friends as much as failure stories, and we learn from both.
Reinhard, we could be talking about this forever, and I'm fascinated by the conversation, because it's something that I'm dealing with right now, not just with clients, but with myself. So this is amazing. So thank you. But we are well over time. So I do want to, as you know, I end this with a few different questions I ask you. So my first question for you, by the way, I should put this disclaimer on just so everyone's aware. But the first question I want to ask you is, what is the best way for people to reach you?
Best way is send me an email, rvh@bhl.law. You can do the long Reinhard.von-Hennigs@bridgehouse.law, but people have typos. You can also go to my website, reinhardvonhennigs.com. And finally, if you're really interested in my book, go to morning-musings.com or go directly to Amazon and buy it. It's a great book, and if you like it, share what you like about it, because I really would like your feedback. I'm actually working on the second book right now. This is called 100, and the new book is called 200 Additional. So I'm working on the next book.
Here's a question for you. What would you like to ask the audience?
As always, feedback. We learn from feedback, but in a more specific way, I would really like to know, what is your most wow moment you have had when you have been outside of the country, or when you have been inside the country and you talk to somebody whose national origin is different than yours. So did somebody who grew up in South America teach you something or give you a wow moment? I really like to like to collect those ideas, because at the end, we're all humans, but we all learn from those experiences.
So I'll answer that question for you from me. So before COVID, the 5 years before that, I'd take between a month to 2 months off, and I'd backpack through a piece of the world. So I started off, my first trip was probably around 2013, I think, or 2014. Can't keep track of it. But essentially, I did Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Singapore, Australia. I went back, gave a talk in Berlin, and then flew back. And during that time, it was incredible, because I landed up having the memories you get are unmatchable. What my favorite thought was, it's a wow moment when you're in the Great Barrier Reef and you're swimming in the Great Barrier Reef. It's a wow moment when you're riding an elephant in Laos. It's a wow moment when you're in Singapore, and it's just, to me, Singapore, and this is a personal perspective, I think I could be wrong, but it feels like a real life Disneyland, in that it feels new and fresh and vibrant, but the same, and incredibly, incredibly clean. But that cleanliness of Singapore, for me, was very different from the cleanliness of Japan, because I felt like in Japan it was culturally expected that you be clean, and in Singapore it was punishments that made you want to stay clean. And I thought that distinction was more apparent to me than I thought it would be. So the wow moment for me was taking a trip from Whitehorse in the Yukon in Canada and driving to Skagway, Alaska in the middle of a whiteout snowstorm. And when the snow when the fog and the snow dissipated, looking around and just realizing how incredibly beautiful it was. And I never thought I'd say that about a place, but it was incredible because you're sort of, I could close my eyes, take a photo, and I guarantee it would be beautiful. It was just incredibly pretty. Going to Rio and seeing just the beaches, and you just kind of go, I didn't know that a beach like this exists. Thailand has similar beaches, but I can keep going, and there are many, many moments like that, but I'll stop. Last question. What's something most people don't know about you?
Wow, that's certainly one of the things where, being the third time on the show, I should have better prepared, or think about what did I answer the other two times. I think what people do not know about me is that I'm very passionate in people-to-people interactions. And sometimes I get this feeling for, well, you are the lawyer, which has a certain professional stiffness to it. Or now, as I'm the German honorary consul, which kind of like has a certain job title attached to it. But at the end, I really do care very deeply about humans, and I try to share it with everybody who I interact with, that at the end, we are all humans, and I do care about them. I do care about you. I do care about humanity at large. But I'm a true believer that the humanity is a key component for all of us.
I love that, especially the fact that you talk about lawyers. I remember actively thinking when I was in law school, before I was in law school, I thought every time I spoke to a lawyer, I'd get a bill. So I didn't want to talk to lawyers because A, they'd be expensive, and B, they'd be too smart for me, and they'd be thinking things that I wasn't thinking. And I didn't know how to explain to people, I don't have the energy to do any of that. I'm just trying to have a conversation. I'm just trying to get to know you. But I thought that was really interesting for me. One last question before we go. Any parting words?
Thanks, Darshan, for being on your show again for the third time. I really enjoyed that. And what I do think is something, especially when I talk about my ideas of getting things done. I changed some things in my organization at the beginning of this year, but the more I talk about those 90 days, create a habit, is something where I have to sometimes talk about it to make sure I talk about it and others hear me and keep me accountable for it. So my parting word is, the more you share your goals with your friends, with your colleagues, with your family, create your BHAG, your big, hairy, and audacious goal, and share it, the more you're likely to succeed. So sharing your goals also make you vulnerable if you are not successful, but by the same token, the whole world, if you share it, is out there to keep you accountable for. And I believe that's relevant, because we can only thrive through a continuation of our execution, and we need people like you to keep people like me accountable for. So let's do that. Keep each other accountable.
I love it. And thank you for those amazing last words. I can't wait to have you on again.
Thanks, Darshan.